And welcome, everybody. Polls officially closed here in Ohio, primary day, and now the counting begins. Of course, it's a presidential election year, but it is the race for U.S. Senate that's getting the most attention.
That's right. And so 3 Republican candidates are hoping to get the nod to face Democrat Sherrod Brown in November. Analysts say spending in this race has already surpassed $50 million.
But tonight we're covering a whole lot more than just that U.S. Senate race. Our team of reporters spread out all across the state of Ohio, from here in Cincinnati to Columbus, Cleveland, and more, reporting on all of the races that matter to you. Unfortunately, voter turnout has not matched all of the attention the election has been getting nationwide. Our team coverage starts with John London tonight, who's been tracking that voter turnout. John.
Yeah, and Mike, when turnout is low and the stakes are high, a 3-way race like that Senate race you talk about can go in any of 3 directions. That's the situation you have in Ohio as the polls close here at 7:30. All 3 of the largest counties, from Cuyahoga through Franklin into Hamilton, are reporting significantly low turnout. Similar trend being felt in Northeast Ohio and the Dayton area, and it means that most registered Republicans will not weigh in at the ballot box, even though the GOP Senate race carries national significance for November, potentially setting up a battle over control of the Senate. Primaries generally see much lower turnout than general elections, especially during a presidential year, but voters we spoke with in Blue Ash were feeling glum about the lack of interest relatively in the Senate race on the Republican ballot. And it's such an important race that you would think more people would come out and vote.
You would, and I don't know whether that's just lethargy. You know, I don't know. I can't put a finger on that one right now, but I know I've talked to some folks, and it's kind of like, you know.
It is very disappointing because every vote counts.
Even my wife said, you know, I'm going to go vote when it counts. I said, well, it does count. It counts right now. And she said, well, I'll just wait for the general election.
So there you have the reality of Ohio Primary Day 2024. Some folks, like the man you just heard from, have been voting since they turned 18, while others just aren't as interested in what they perceive as sort of an undercard primaries that, of course, set the table for the general election in November. Live in Norwood, John London, WLWT News 5.
I got to be honest, though, it is a bit surprising, John, because it seems everybody has an opinion about politics these days. I am wondering, what are some of the areas maybe around Ohio to be keeping an eye on tonight that might offer maybe a few clues about who could win that Senate race?
Yeah, there are some areas around the state, Cherie. The 2nd Congressional District that is being vacated by Brad Wenstrup is one. You got 11 candidates there. Some state representatives are running. They're in the mix. Counties like Claremont and Scioto could have a higher percentage turnout than a lot of people think. And then I would also point out the 9th District up in Northwest Ohio. There's a contested 3-way race there to see who will run against Democrat Mary Kaptur in November. She's been elected 21 times. She is the longest-serving woman in Congress ever. So you could have a high percentage turnout there. So those kind of areas, those races, can bring out more voters and could possibly tip the balance in that Senate race.
All right, going to be exciting to watch tonight. John London reporting live for us tonight. John, thanks so much. Back now to the GOP race for U.S. Senate, and our team is spread out across Ohio for you tonight.
Yeah, we begin with WLWT News 5 anchor Ashley Kirkland. She's in Westlake, Ohio with Bernie Moreno tonight. And this is a big one tonight. Went into the election with a key endorsement from former President Donald Trump. Hi, Ashley.
Hi, guys. Well, with the polls officially closing just a few moments ago, we'll now see soon just how much that endorsement from former President Donald Trump will mean for Bernie Moreno. Now, like Donald Trump, Bernie Moreno has touted himself as the only true conservative in this race, as well as the anti-politician. He's also said that he wants to be a leader in the Republican Party that puts first the America First agenda in our country. Now, Moreno has said in his quest to take on, he set out his quest to take on Democratic incumbent Senator Sherrod Brown this fall. The Republican businessman has received other key endorsements from Senator J.D. Vance, Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan, and as well as Ohio Attorney General Dave Yost, and many more. Here's what Moreno had to say at an event that he did with Warren Davidson about Republican leadership in Washington.
Ladies and gentlemen, What I hear from all over Ohio is how extremely disappointed they are in their elected leaders. Every Republican comes to a group like this and tells them what they want to hear, but then they get to Washington, D.C. and don't vote that way. They want somebody who's actually going to stand up and actually fight for the agenda.
So as John, you heard John say, with a low voter turnout this race, and also with those undecided voters, some are still seeing this race as a toss-up. We are waiting for those results, as you guys are, Mike and Cherie, and we'll see how things unfold here. For right now, we're live in Westlake, Ohio. Ashley Kirkland, WLWT News 5.
Ashley, I'm hearing the scuttlebutt behind you. It's pretty loud. I don't see the faces, so I don't know what they're looking like. What's the atmosphere like? Do they seem pretty positive?
Yeah, absolutely. Very positive here, Mike. I just heard a little Frank Sinatra. I did it my way. I am told by Bernie Moreno's camp that he is just down the road at his home as these results roll in. They're expecting about 300 people here tonight. People are starting to roll into this party. He's supposed to get here around 8:30 or 9 o'clock after those results roll in. So we'll see what happens. Back to you, Mike.
All right, Ashley Kirkland live with Bernie Moreno and his camp. We'll be back with her later. Thank you so much, Ashley.
So we have all of the races covered for you. State Senator Matt Dolan has earned the support of Ohio's moderate Republicans.
And that would include the governor right now of Ohio, Mike DeWine, and WLWT News 5's anchor Chris Jacobs. Live with the Dolan campaign, Independence, Ohio. That is a suburb of Cleveland. Hi there.
Yeah, hey, Mike Cherie. You know, Independence, Ohio is where Matt Dolan is going to be holding his watch party. It's about 20 minutes south of downtown Cleveland. Now, Dolan is not here just yet, but he is expected to show up in a couple of hours, at least when this race is called or when the results of that race do become apparent. Now, a big talking point of this race has been the big names involved. That also includes the candidates as well as the people backing the candidates. Former President Trump, of course, is backing Dolan's challenger, Bernie Moreno. But last week, Governor DeWine announced his support for Dolan, even after saying he wouldn't endorse anyone. That gave Dolan a slight boost in an Emerson College poll when he was projected as the front runner. But there's been a last-minute rush for Moreno after a weekend rally in Dayton saw former President Trump as the headliner. Dolan has cast himself as a moderate Republican and the only candidate in his primary who didn't actively seek Trump's endorsement. And some of the major issues for Dolan's campaign have been Ohio jobs and creating more opportunities here, a focus on border security and supporting law enforcement. He's also put emphasis on putting Ohioans first. It was one of his bigger talking points during the Senate debate 2 weeks ago, and we did speak with Dolan earlier today, and he kept sending that message.
That would be the first.
When I talk about getting the economy going, that's because Washington has Ohio families paying $11,000 more per household since Joe Biden and Sherrod Brown have been in office. That's what we need to focus on. When I talk about Ohio, I talk about Ohio's security. I talk about Ohio's safety and Ohioans' opportunity. And that's what this is about. And when I can go to Washington, we can make Ohio strong, we'll make America strong.
Yeah, now, the incumbent Senator Sherrod Brown is considered to be, by political experts, one of the more vulnerable Democrats in November. They cite last year's train derailment as a big reason why. But again, Dolan is expected to speak here in a couple of hours, so we will bring you that coverage when it does in fact happen. For now, reporting in Cleveland, Chris Jacobs, WLWT News 5.
Chris, thanks so much. And 7:40 right now. Ohio polls closed for 10 minutes. And as you can see, bottom of your screen, we've kind of squeezed it up there for you. The results are now coming in. So keep it here all night until we get to the end of some of these big races. So the polls are closed for 10 minutes. Frank LaRose supporters awaiting his arrival there at the Grandview Cafe in Columbus.
And WLWT News 5's Karen Johnson joining us from his election night party. And Karen, people are starting to filter in, it looks like.
Yeah, they sure are, Cherie. Among those here already, Frank LaRose's wife, Lauren, I was just speaking with her. She said that her their three daughters would be arriving, and I just saw three little girls walk in. So they are now here. Frank LaRose, though, himself, he won't be here until after all of the results are in, because he is Secretary of State, so he wants to make sure everything there is in order before he comes to the party. Now, going into the race, LaRose had several things on his side. For one, he had name recognition. He's the only candidate of the three who have held statewide office, but he's not a multimillionaire like Marino and Dolan. He told us during a campaign stop, though, in Butler County, he considers that a badge of honor and makes him more relatable to most Ohioans. He said he understands most people have to sit at the table and figure out how they're going to pay their bills and wants to take values families in Ohio have to Washington, D.C. He told us his campaign has always been about the people.
In many ways, it's been a wild ride, right? I mean, this has been a very dynamic contest to have the Democrat leader of the Senate trying to weigh in and that kind of thing. But we've been steady and focused on this. My campaign has always been about talking to voters. As I said, it's a year-long job interview, and that's exactly what I'm out doing. Nobody will outwork me.
And talking to supporters here at his party, they seem cautiously optimistic. They know going into today he was last in the polls, but they said, a lot of Ohioans, they were undecided, and they hope when those people went to the polls, they saw the name Frank LaRose, that name click with them, and they're hoping that he got their vote. So they are staying cautiously optimistic. Again, LaRose expected to be here at his party in Columbus after the results are in. Reporting live in Columbus tonight, Karen Johnson, WLWT News 5.